What's up, guys? I'm the VOL16. Welcome to Creeptoks, where I scour the internet in search of the craziest, creepiest, scariest videos. Let's go on this ride together as we discern reality, fiction, and the paranormal. Hop on, let's go.
Энни, впусти меня, пожалуйста. Энни, открой. Скорее прошу, мне так страшно. Энни, прошу тебя. Это я, твоя сестра, ты не моя сестра. Почему я умерла, Энни? Почему я умерла, Энни? Почему ты меня бросила? Открой дверь, не зли меня. Нет, открой дверь. Нет.
Imagine sitting in your room, minding your business, going about your life without a single worry in the world. When all of a sudden, a random broadcast is seen on the television, heard on the radio, you look down at your phone and you see and hear the same message. What is a normal response to such an event? I would imagine these days not many would take it seriously and blamelessly so. However, in this instance, it's a real emergency broadcast signal taken over by artificial intelligence. Robots, created to help us with our daily lives, quickly turn against us. Our supposed smart devices totally lock us in and out of our homes and offices, while smart cars completely take the wheel and drive. It would be a modern-day set of the movie Maximum Overdrive by Stephen King. Responses would be limited, seeing that the human race willingly turned their lives over to their devices. It really wouldn't take much, and in a few short years, something like this would be a flawless execution, in every aspect imaginable. That is something to think about.
Do not panic. Do not move. This is a nationwide announcement. Do not leave your home until further notice. If you have a loved one who is outdoors, do not make any sort of contact. They are most likely infected. Lock all doors and windows. Keep children out of sunlight and in shadows. Do not let them see you. Red lights will be used to inspect homes. If the light senses movement, it will destroy your home along with you and your family. Your safety means nothing to us. It is up to you to survive how you like. If you choose to live, follow our laws.
In the late fall of 1952, 20 school children ranging from 8 to 13 years old were on their way back from a field trip to the Smooth Theater. But their bus driver, Ms. Bernadette Shaw, took a wrong turn on the way home. In her attempt to find a shortcut back to their school in Clarksburg, where dozens of parents were waiting for her to return, Ms. Shaw ended up on the deserted back roads of West Virginia with a bus load of sleepy children. Using the moonlight to guide her, Ms. Shaw turned onto a shabby road that barely saw any activity. The road twisted so tightly around hairpin curves that it was far too narrow for her to turn the bus around and head back to the main road. She had no choice but to keep going. She'd been driving aimlessly for hours and was so distracted trying to find a way back that she didn't realize the gas gauge was well below E. Almost immediately, the engine started to cough and sputter as it gasped for fuel. The bus came to a rolling stop on top of a set of abandoned railroad tracks. As she turned around to tell the children not to panic, they were already fast asleep, exhausted for the day's journey. It was well past their bedtime, and the dark, deserted route offered little more than trees in the way of scenery. She had two choices. She could wake the children and have them walk with her to the nearest gas station, or she could leave them on the bus while she walked by herself. There would likely be an attendant at the gas station whom she hoped would give her a ride back to the bus. If so, she would only be gone for 30 minutes, an hour at the most, and she only had one flashlight which wasn't bright enough to lead 20 children on a winding miles-long hike in the dark. So she decided that the children would be safer on the bus. There was no telling what type of debris could be lying on the road, and if a group of kids decided to wander off along the path, she wouldn't be able to see them sneak away. It was best that she just went by herself, grabbing the metal flashlight from under the driver's seat. She stepped onto the weary, rotting tracks, locked the bus door behind her, and began to walk. She picked up her pace, almost to a jog, hoping she would get back before any of the children woke up. 10 minutes went by, and she knew she had to be getting closer to town. The crisp night air was so silent that she could have heard a person coming from a mile away, but it wasn't a person who startled her. Quickly she looked behind her. The railroad crossing where the bus sat lifelessly was perched upon a plateau stretching as far as she could see. At first, the approaching light was just a speck on the horizon, but as it grew bigger, the persistent sound of a chugging engine made her drop her flashlight and take off running back to the bus. Chug, chug, chug echoed through the still air. The closer the train got, the faster she ran. Her heart pounded as it jumped into her throat. She screamed for the train to stop, but her cries were overpowered by the haunting hollow whistle of the locomotive. Her knees ached as her feet hit the ground harder with each step. She shouted, "Stop! Please stop!" Her arms flailed in the dark night, her eyes soiled with tears. "Stop!" she cried. "God, no! Please stop!" No longer lost in peaceful slumber, the children's tiny silhouettes could be seen banging in the windows of the bus, trying frantically to get out. The train's brakes tightened around its wheels, sparks dancing alongside them. The children continued to pound on the glass as they screamed for help. "Stop!" Miss Shaw cried again, but her tear-soaked plea was no match for sickening sound of metal colliding with her. The train crashed into the bus, splitting it in two with intense effect. Shrapnel like shards flew through the air, piercing the ground as they landed. The front half of the bus rolled onto its side and came onto its top, then on its other side. It swayed back and forth as the thud of metal hitting pavement echoed in the air all around. Miss Shaw fell to her knees in utter despair. As the train continued to blaze by, she could see the other half of the bus between each car as they passed. The back half of the bus was flat on its side, its steel walls frayed open like the mouth of a jagged abyss. Miss Shaw let out a gut-wrenching scream as she quickly jumped to her feet. She ran to the wreck, and as reality set in, she began wailing. She hadn't noticed the train come to a stop. The conductor got off the train. His body white with shock approached, while Miss Shaw screeched in fear. He surveyed the scene, body trembling.
I tried.
He mumbled to Miss Shaw.
I tried to stop.
He repeated as he cupped his hand over his mouth, trying to control the bile brewing in the back of his throat.
Oh God! What?
He wept at the sight of the horrible scene.
Why were you on the tracks?
Before she could respond, her grief-stricken eyes rolled back into her head, and her legs gave out. The conductor caught her as she fell against him. He dragged her body through the scattered mess of the scene to some nearby grass. When she finally came to, police had arrived on the scene. She slowly sat up and looked toward the bus. Its two halves separated by 50 feet of messy roadway. She was taken to a nearby hospital and, at the behest of the heartbroken parents, was arrested on the spot for involuntary manslaughter. Decades went by before anyone would drive by that road again.
If you are inside your home with the lights out, do not look outside your window. Turn on your lights before you look through any window. Do not leave your home if you see a figure outside. Even if he is turned away, do not look at him. Lock all doors and windows before turning off all lights inside your residence. Hide in a small space and call authorities. Do not move from hiding unless you hear an unfamiliar voice. If you do hear a familiar voice coming from inside your home, do not move. He is inside. He is inside. He is inside.
This was the only governmentally confirmed case of possession. All psychological and pharmacological explanations were ruled out. A completely unknown molecular compound was found in her tissue. Something was inside, no doubt about that. Not a disease, not a parasite, an evil.
How many noses does a monkey have?
In 1974, a group of scientists would band together and form what was known as the Atticus Institute, and they had one goal.
Our goal was to conduct unbiased empirical research on exceptional human abilities, psychokinesis, ESP, precognition, things that are typically considered fringe science or parapsychology.
And for 2 years, they would encounter pretty much nothing but fakes. At least until 1976, when a woman by the name of Judith Winstead had been dropped off at their door like a baby at a fire station.
She would scream in that voice.
The Institute thought that they had hit a gold mine with Judith. However, the worst had yet to come.
Judith, what I'd like you to try to do is to move the wheel without actually touching it. Try to concentrate, Judith.
Because as soon as the US military caught wind of what they were doing, they wanted a piece of that sweet psychic cake.
Having the ability to remotely collect intel, be able to read the minds of foreign leaders to know exactly what their plan of attack is, where they were, what they were thinking at any given moment, all from thousands of miles away. We were looking at the future of clandestine warfare, where attacks could be as strategic and as untraceable as we saw fit.
Now, if you would like to go watch the Atticus Institute for yourself, it is available on Tubi. It is a phenomenal found footage movie, and I would highly recommend you take an evening to watch this one. It is.
In a shocking turn of events, the government has announced that they have successfully weaponized demons, claiming it as a breakthrough in national defense. The process involves harnessing the supernatural powers of demonic entities and integrating them into advanced military technology. As a result, the public is left reeling with fear and uncertainty. The implications are far-reaching, with many questioning the ethics of such a move and worrying about the potential consequences for human safety and well-being. The government's decision has sparked widespread protests and calls for transparency, as the public demands answers about the true intentions behind this controversial project. Imagine waking up one morning and hearing that on the mainstream media, with all outlets covering this story. How do you suppose society would react? How would you react? Drop your thoughts in the comments section, if you dare.
It was supposed to be a quiet getaway. Steven and I needed a break from everything. Work, family, the city. So we rented an Airbnb in the woods, a cozy cabin deep in the middle of nowhere. It was winter, and the world around us was draped in snow, making it feel like we were completely isolated from everything else. Exactly what we wanted. We arrived at around sunset. The cabin was adorable, with a creaky wooden deck, and inside, a stone fireplace already laid out with logs. By the time we unpacked and settled in, it was dark outside. We opened a bottle of red wine. After a few glasses, Steven suggested we explore the property. There was supposed to be a small clearing behind the cabin, so we bundled up and trudged out into the cold. We were tipsy, walking haphazardly and giggling. We soon stumbled upon a small mound, partially hidden in snow, near the edge of the woods. Strange, there was a stone marker, like a headstone of a grave, but there was no name, just a weird symbol. It looked like two interlocking circles, with a serpent twisting between them. Steven knelt down to brush off the snow, laughing. He was always the braver one between us, always curious.
It's a grave, right? Maybe it's someone's pet.
I don't know. No name. Could be anything. He was drunk, and in his ridiculous state, he unzipped his pants and started peeing on it, laughing all the while. I swatted at him, telling him he was being disrespectful, but he just waved me off, laughing as he finished. I felt uneasy. Something about that grave unsettled me, but I was too tipsy to really process it. So we headed back to the cabin, stumbling and laughing. That night, I woke up to a strange sound. It was like scratching, the kind of sharp, repetitive noise that made my skin crawl. I reached over, but Steven wasn't in bed. My heart skipped a beat, and I sat up. The scratching, it was coming from outside. I pulled on my coat, my hands trembling as I opened the door. I saw Steven standing in the snow, staring out into the woods, motionless. His breath was visible in the air, and I could hear that scratching sound, louder, like nails on stone.
Stefan, what are you doing?
He didn't answer. The scratching grew louder, a horrible grating noise that made me feel like I was losing my mind. It wants to come out. His voice was flat, almost distant, like he was in some kind of trance. I grabbed his arm, trying to shake him out of it.
Come back right now. Something isn't right.
The grave. It wants to come out. He pulled away from me and ran towards the grave. I followed him, the snow stinging my face as I stumbled after him. He dropped to his knees, clawing at the snow, his hands bare as he dug into the frozen ground.
Stop it! Stefan, stop!
I tried to pull him away, but he was strong, stronger than I'd ever seen him. His nails were breaking, his fingers red and raw as he tore at the snow like he was possessed. And then, I saw it, a fox emerging from the woods. Its eyes glowed in the dark, an unnatural eerie light that made my stomach twist. It watched us, its gaze fixed on Steven, and when it came out, I was shocked. It wasn't red, but black. Finally, Steven stopped. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and unfocused. I pulled him to his feet and we started back towards the cabin, my heart pounding in my chest. As we reached the deck, a deep growl echoed from the direction of the grave, low and guttural. I turned, and there was the fox, sitting atop the mound, its eyes still glowing, its body curled up like it was guarding something, looking at us. Steven collapsed onto the bed, and I watched him until his breathing evened out, his face relaxed. I couldn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the window. The next morning, Steven acted like nothing had happened. He didn't remember a thing. I showed him his hands, expecting the torn nails, the bloody fingertips, but they were fine. perfectly fine. He laughed it off, said I must have been dreaming, but I knew what I saw. I knew what I heard. We packed up, ready to leave. I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. Steven was humming to himself as he loaded our bags in the car, completely unfazed. But as he put his hand on the steering wheel, a jolt ran through me. There, just under his wrist, was a small scar, the shape of 2 interlocking circles with a serpent twisting between them, the same symbol from the grave.
Stefan? Where did you get this?
He had no answer.
It's the same symbol as the grave.
What grave?
The one we saw yesterday.
But he just looked confused. When I insisted, he pulled me by my hand and took me to the place of the grave. But to my shock, when we reached there was nothing. I felt a chill run through me, a deep, gnawing fear that settled in my bones. I did not care to investigate and pulled Steven to the car, driving away. But I am certain that we disturbed an otherworldly presence that day.
If you made it this far, I would like to express my appreciation. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that little bell icon so you don't miss out on my next upload. Now, Alien is signing off. Peace.